Ladies and gentlemen, Trump has just admitted 2025 could be far worse than a recession. He has come out and admitted that what we could be facing, or what he's inheriting from a last administration with a record amount of debt, could not just be a recession but a depression. People, what we have to understand is things are piling up and we're about to see them come out in 2025. All the people that are struggling, the people that can't get a job, and now they want to import a bunch of cheap labor to take the jobs from you when unemployment is starting to tick up, and we're going to see unemployment get even worse in 2025. We're seeing record demand at food banks. We're seeing retailers collapse because people don't have the disposable income. We're seeing economic indicator after economic indicator continue to tell us that things are going to be very, very bad. And we just got another huge indicator. So everyone, we've got a lot to cover in today's video to tell you, or to show you, not just tell you, I'm going to show you with proof that things aren't looking very, very good at all unless we see some huge change. So you know what time it is, everyone. Let's get straight into the news, the facts, and the data. Well, okay, I'll go ahead and bring this up. Can you guess what the first story would be? Look at this. Demand at food banks has soared to record levels all over the US. So why is demand at food banks all over the country higher than it has ever been? The media keeps insisting that economic conditions are just fine, but it has become quite obvious to everyone this is not true. In particular, the rising cost of living has been absolutely crushing households from coast to coast, and I absolutely agree. What do you think? Let me know down below. In the old days, most of the people that would show up at food banks were unemployed, but now food banks are serving large numbers of people that actually do have jobs but don't make enough to pay for all the basics. And this is what I'm talking about. There's a huge debate right now in the Trump administration and with MAGA about H-1B visa workers. And this is what it leads to. If they can pay someone half the wage cost to pay you, well, then your wages aren't going to go up. But what happens when you bring a bunch of people to the country? Well, demand for all essential services like housing, healthcare, insurance, utilities, everything goes up. The demand for food goes up, but your wages go down. And this is why we're seeing the standard of living continue to plummet. Even if GDP goes up, it doesn't matter. On an individual basis, your standard of living on a per capita basis, people are in a recession right now, and this is proof of it. The ranks of the working poor, that's right now, it's not the working class anymore, it's the working poor, unless you're a big executive, are growing very rapidly, and this is creating an unprecedented crisis all over America. So that's right, everyone. This is the first part of the picture I want to talk about, is food banks are seeing record demand after record demand in San Francisco. We're seeing this in Montana. We're seeing this in New Jersey. And they're telling us there's no reason to be concerned, but they aren't telling you the truth. So like they're talking about here, when will our leaders finally admit that we have a huge problem? Nobody in Washington wants to admit it. According to Robert of Food Line, the largest hunger relief organization in the state, food insecurity affects about 25% of Washington, or Washingtons, meaning 1 in 4 residents is struggling to access enough food. That is absolutely insane. The largest network of food banks in the state of Washington is reporting that overall demand has nearly doubled since the pandemic began. So this is absolutely insane, everyone. And they go on to say, while young bankers are having to work crazy hours, do crazy things just to try to get ahead. So that's the first story. Now, I'll get into Trump's tweet, or should I say social, in a moment, where he admits that he's inheriting a depression. But look at this. Chicago PMI plummets near COVID lows as small biz CEO confidence soars. Well, their confidence is soaring because they're hoping they can bring in a bunch of cheap workers, and there's going to be a lot of deregulation, which we shouldn't have too much red tape. But if we have too much deregulation, where these billionaire CEOs can take advantage of the American people too much, then it's not a good thing. We all need balance. Now, for those who don't know what the PMI is, it's a Purchase Managers Index. This is a huge indicator if the economy is growing or not. Are companies purchasing goods? Are there lots of orders coming in? Are the price of those goods going up or falling? So let's get into this report here. So Chicago PMI survey plunged back to near COVID lows. This, remember, again, when the whole world was shut down. So of course it was going to be a huge drop, but now we're having drops when there's no global shutdown. So this is very, very alarming. So this is a contraction of 36.9, below the lowest analyst estimate of 40. So prices paid rose at a slower pace, significant expansion. New orders fell at a faster pace, signaling contraction. So again, no new orders are falling. Employment fell at a lower pace, signaling contraction. Inventories fell at a faster pace, signaling contraction. Supply deliveries rose at a faster pace, signaling expansion. Production fell at a faster pace, signaling contraction. And order backlogs fell at a slower pace, signaling contraction. So we can see here, things aren't looking good. Prices aren't rising as much as they used to be because new orders are falling, employment's falling, inventories are falling, supply deliveries are falling, production's falling, and order backlogs are falling as well. We can see it in these charts here. This tumble in the survey sentiment fits with the overall slump in the soft data since Trump was elected. Now, there's obviously a lag with this, which is the odd given the small business and CEO large business confidence has exploded high since his election. Again, there will be a lag for that. Does this make one wonder just who the local Fed surveys are asking? Well, let's get into this next report, because remember, demand for food banks are rising, the Chicago PMI is contracting, we're seeing unemployment go up, and Trump just put out this tweet here, I should say social. I'll move myself here so you can see it. I'll go ahead and minimize this. So the extension of the debt ceiling by previous Speaker of the House, a good man and a friend of mine, everyone's a good friend of Trump, isn't it? From this past September of the Biden administration to June of the Trump administration will go down as one of the dumbest political decisions made in years. There was no reason to do it, nothing was gained, and we got nothing for it. A major reason why the speaker was lost, the speakership was lost, it was Biden's problem, not ours. Now it becomes ours, and this is where he's calling it here, everyone. I call it 1929 because the Democrats don't care about our country, and we may be forced into, in fact, they would prefer depression. So he's saying pretty much here, we're inheriting a depression because of the massive US debt. The debt's at $36 trillion, the deficits are in the trillions, they're paying trillions just in interest. Janet Yellen took on all this debt, and I'll show you a clip in a moment of her admitting that we got a huge problem. And of course, what do politicians all do? They all just kick it down the road, leave it for the next administration to deal with. But people, if you think they can just keep doing this forever, no, they can't do it forever. Eventually, they have to repay back the debt, or they have to be able to reduce the debt so they can keep servicing it. And with interest rates soaring on the 10-year US Treasury right now, Donald Trump's administration's going to have to do some huge cuts, and I hope they don't cut essential services. I hope they cut a lot of the fluff and funding billions and billions of dollars to wars that, don't affect us. But he says our country may be forced into it. In fact, they would prefer depression as long as it hurts the Republican Party. The Democrats must be forced to take a vote on this treacherous issue now during the Biden administration and not in June, and they should be blamed for this political potential disaster, not the Republicans. So again, taking sides out of this, just talking purely economics, this debt is a big issue. We saw that Moody's downgraded the US government credit rating last year when they were doing all the political theater around the debt ceiling. We all know that they do it at the last minute. But let's get into this clip. Things are very, very bad with the debt right now.
Last question. One not so great aspect of the legacy you and President Biden leave behind is a very large budget deficit, roughly 6% of GDP. Are you sorry you couldn't make more progress on that? And how
6% of GDP. That's absolutely insane, everyone.
How much of a risk does that pose to the economy?
Well, I am concerned about fiscal sustainability. And
now she's concerned because she's leaving office. And she doesn't want the next administration to look like the economy's doing good. They wanted to make sure it's looking bad. So now she's saying, okay, now it's time to be responsible now that we're leaving.
And I am sorry that we haven't made more progress. I believe that the deficit needs to be brought down, especially now that we're in an environment of higher interest rates. And for example,
Again, interest rates were rising last year, so why didn't she do it then? Why is she only saying this now? We all know, people.
over the last year, the interest cost of the debt has increased by several hundred billion. It's one of the largest items responsible for the increase in the budget deficit. And we do need to bring it down. The primary deficit, excluding interest, is now a little over 3%, and I believe it needs to come down.
That's right. Interest costs now, just the interest to service the debt is now approaching $1 trillion. It's absolutely insane. So everyone, what you need to understand is the US government has been on this massive, irresponsible spending spree. And now it's time to face the music. Eventually that road does end. And unfortunately, Trump is going to inherit a hugely indebted economy. And sometimes, instead of living in fairy tale land, you need to face the music. It is natural for there to be recessions. It's natural for there to be economic contractions. It's healthy to let all those zombie corporations fail, because we don't want to keep on bailing out these zombie corporations. Let all the bad businesses that took too much risk fail. That's capitalism. Remember, part of capitalism is letting companies fail. People think we have capitalism in America. No, we have socialism for the rich, for the banks, for the mega corporations, and capitalism for the poor. So let all those big corporations fail, and then that gives opportunities for you, the little guy, to go and start a business, take less risk, and create a better business. Okay? Yes, it's painful in the short term, but it's better for the long-term economic growth and economic stability. But what they're doing right now is creating the biggest bubble in history. That's right, this is the biggest bubble in history. The stock market has never been more overvalued. The stock market is now 200% of GDP. The Warren Buffett indicator has never been this high, saying the US stock market is overvalued. And it means the next crash will be much, much worse, because they've tried to artificially inflate it. So everyone, you need to be buying gold, silver right now, some Bitcoin as well. I don't think Bitcoin will perform as well in 2025 as it did this year. All of you that listened and did buy gold, silver, and Bitcoin this year massively outperformed the stock market. So no, it's not all doom and gloom. I do teach you guys how to make money in these markets, no matter how bad or good they are. It was a fantastic year for Bitcoin, gold, silver investors, and I think next year could be a great year as well. But what do you all think about this? Do you think next year will be very, very tough? I like Trump, and obviously don't agree with everything he says, just like you wouldn't agree with anything any politician says, or everything, should I say, with any politician. But he's going to be inheriting some big problems. So let me know down below. Thanks for watching. You're awesome. I'll see you all in the next video.